It's a pleasure to be here and talk to you a bit about the solutions we have for asset tracking, especially for unpowered assets. So I'm the president of AssetLink Global. We've been in the IoT and monitoring machine-to-machine space, GPS tracking, you name it, since the late 90s through various different projects and enablements on the infrastructure side. And AssetLink itself has been around since 2009, serving the transportation industry, military, oil and gas, maritime. So we have quite a bit of experience in these areas. And one area where we really are focused is on tracking and securing cargo and physical transportation assets, especially ones that don't have any power source and may not have any people with them for extended periods. That's really where a lot of the liability sits. That's what a lot of insurance is really there to cover. It's the value of the cargo. It's issues with transportation, with delivery. Those issues are not ones that a driver can always address. They're not ones where there's always a cigarette lighter to plug into. So a lot of the work we do is in securing the things that matter most, not just really driver training, driver tracking, ELD types of requirements, which is important, but in a way is easier because there's a human being around to deal with it. So this is a bit of a harder problem, and it's proven that way over time in terms of the amount of theft that exists, the amount of cargo loss, both in over-the-road trucking as well as rail. And so we have some of the solutions that can help to address that. So fundamentally, I keep talking about this difference because there is a difference between what's needed in order to serve cargo tracking, to serve trailers, containers, all kinds of assets, as opposed to just the drivers. The drivers are so critical. I mean, they're the heart of the operation, but ultimately they can't be everywhere. So it's really the difference between just seeing a location, seeing where a tractor is, seeing where a driver is, or even seeing just GPS dots, and rather actually understanding the condition of your shipments and how it's fitting into your day-to-day logistics. There's knowing where it is, but then there's knowing how it is. What's really happening with the asset? Are the doors open, closed? Is there cargo inside? Is it full or empty or partially full for a less than a truckload shipment? And where should it be routed? In addition to loss prevention, there's a huge amount of wastage. By not really knowing what's happening on the assets, it's much more than just, where is this equipment? Where is the driver? So the goal of what we want to talk about here is how some of these solutions that are emerging in the market today can allow you to take active control over the operation, and not thinking of the operation as a number of waypoints and then a journey between them, but rather having active control over all the aspects of the operation, even when passive, unpowered equipment is out in the field making deliveries. We call that AssetLink Asset Knowledge, and that's what we're teamed with Progressive to provide you with today. So for a long time, GPS tracking has been around for a while, and the idea of just seeing and tracking asset locations for a long time has been enough, because having some visibility is infinitely better than having no visibility. And that's the baseline of what these systems that we're offering today provide. But then you have more than just seeing where the asset is, understanding what the information is coming back from the asset, knowledge on the condition, really this idea of having total visibility into your operation anywhere, anytime. And that's really at the core of what we're talking about. And we'll show at the end a good case study of a company that took this and really developed that insight into their whole operation from end to end, rather than just snapshots when they could tap into data coming. So this asset knowledge idea, assets really begin talking intelligently to you so you can plan around what's happening in the real world. So familiar territory, asset tracking. Everyone likely has some familiarity with this, if nothing else, just from Google Maps, but likely more than that. So we have very world-class tracking and location capabilities. There are a lot of different systems out there that can provide GPS dots on a map. 10 years with zero maintenance it starts to get to be a different issue in a different area. So one of the challenges that a lot of companies see in implementing these systems is the maintenance side of it. The installation is its own challenge. Obviously, these are moving assets, and so the installation has to be quick and simple and easy. And so there are systems, the systems that you want to look at are ones that are designed to be what many call slap and track, really, pull into a yard, 10 minutes, 15 minutes maximum, and then that asset can be installed by somebody who is not an engineer, not a highly skilled technician, but it can be installed by somebody who is at the facility, can slap it on, and then it can go back on its way out on the road again, because you don't want to be taking equipment offline for hours or even days, running cables, running wires, hooking into electrical buses. That all takes a lot of time, and that costs the business a lot of money and a lot of opportunity cost. And the coordination factor is a big issue, especially when we're talking about, maybe, tens, dozens, hundreds of assets, sometimes even thousands. Just the coordination of that installation could be challenging. So a very simple slap and track. And then maintenance is the other important piece. If there is a 2-year battery change requirement, which a lot of devices out there have, 3-year battery change requirement, that's something that needs to be taken into account. And that cost of, again, pulling the units off the road, changing the batteries, putting them back out on the road, that's its own big cost. The systems that we use are solar powered. So the concept there is a 10-minute install and then zero maintenance for 10 years. They don't get touched. There's no battery change required. The 100% powered by solar. No need to wire up any physical power to the device. So very simple and very long lasting, which in the end really reduces your total lifecycle cost, because the goal as an organization is to say, what's my cost, not just for hardware, not just for data service, but total lifecycle over the course of the economic life of my trailer or my container. Do I have to replace the device multiple times? Do I have to change batteries multiple times? What's the cost of taking it offline? Those are all factors to think through when looking at different systems. And so, looking at a system that has a quick install and then no maintenance tends to really bring that down, that total lifecycle cost down quite a bit. The other relevant thing here is dead spots. So we'll see actually in the case study at the end, they were operating in the southern US and also Mexico. A lot of dead spots on cellular in Mexico. So we have options that are either cellular based, which of course are lower cost from the hardware point of view, but also satellite based, which have no dead spots anywhere, truly ubiquitous 100% coverage through satellite. And then we have dual mode devices that have both cellular and satellite. And that's helpful. And it's important to think about how the data connection is going to work. If the vehicles are going up and down I-95 or across I-10, and that's pretty much their whole life, then cellular often will be perfect. It's really all you need. Reasonably good coverage on the open road, on the interstates. As soon as you start going into rural areas, off-road, cross-border, anything in the U.S. West Texas, or west of the Mississippi, anything in Canada, outside of the narrow band near the border, tends to start to get into dead spots. And then, of course, it's a question of loss prevention. The criminals know where cellular doesn't work. They know where they can go, where asset tracking isn't going to typically take over. And so in those cases where we have high risk, either areas of operation or high risk assets, cargo is very important, high value or critical in some way, then satellite can be useful because those dead spots are no longer dead. They're quite alive. We can get all that data equally well, and it makes it a lot easier to look for unauthorized stops in those areas, things like that. So there are a couple different options as far as the data pathway, but that's, again, something to think through. And we can provide a mix of those different devices if needed. So then beyond those basic, fundamental but base level requirements, really the next set of items to think about is what other knowledge can we get from the device. So real-time data is very important. And one thing that we see is there's quite a bit of evolution in the technology that's happening out there. And it can be risky to commit to a piece of hardware only to see that in 2 years, now there are requirements for, let's say, cargo monitoring within your organization. Or now there are requirements for door open close sensing and monitoring. There are a lot of different things that can be monitored on what we call a smart trailer or a smart container. So where to start? And we've seen time and time again companies committing to a particular set of requirements without really thinking about future proofing and expandability. And it either causes decision paralysis or it causes a commitment to a piece of hardware that ends up being outdated in 3 years, even if it has 5-year or 8-year lifetime on it. And so what we've designed into the AssetPack is to really be a platform that evolves. So we can, just like the Tesla can take a new firmware update, and then now the Tesla has new modes, it has better self-driving capabilities, it has more autonomous capability, whatever types of upgrades Tesla wants to put into their vehicle, they know with confidence that they can ship a vehicle and you can buy it, and you'll be able to get that next download, which will give that next set of features that maybe weren't available when you bought it. The AssetPack works the same way. So we're able to upload new features, add sensors, modify firmware over the air in order to load new configurations, so that as your requirements evolve, maybe you want to start taking advantage of the Bluetooth. Every device is Bluetooth enabled. So there are various Bluetooth sensors that can be added, and more are always emerging for things like tire pressure or weight or door open close. We even have radiation sensors that we've developed for certain customers that need to monitor the presence or the absence of a radioactive source on their shipment. So there's a whole variety of different things that can be added. The nice thing with a platform approach, as opposed to a fixed hardware approach, is you don't have to know all those ahead of time. And in our environment, in our world where things are moving very fast on the technology side, this allows you to have that base platform and then upgrade over time as you want to add sensors. It becomes a very simple process to do that and add more information over time. So that's just, simple tracker. This is what the tracker looks like. It's just a little under 12 inches long. It slaps on. It's designed, if you have containers or intermodal types of assets, it's designed to slip in between the corrugation on containers. It's also just an inch in profile, so it can fit on top of trailers without concern of clearance. As long as they're observing their margin of error as they do their drive planning. It can go on the sides of containers and the fronts of containers or trailers. So it's a very flexible device in terms of where it's mounted and how it's mounted. And everything is self-contained in that device you see there. So the power source, the antennas, the modems, the intelligence, everything is self-contained right in that source. And there's no extra wiring or cables needed. It just slaps onto the asset and then goes. So then we have this customizable array of different performance, security, measurement indicators that we can add over time and then reprogram over time. So here's another way of looking at it, a little more schematic way for those that think that way. Basically have the AssetPack. It has a data connection either with satellite or with cellular or with both. It'll attach to an asset. It automatically gives location every time. We can also give other elements. Cargo status is one. We're launching at the beginning of this coming year a cargo sensor monitors that'll actually give the percentage full of the container or trailer based on looking for pallets that are sitting there and the time of distance between the door and a pallet. So it can tell you if that trailer or container is full, 40%, 80%, empty, whatever it is. And that allows for a lot of planning and a lot of avoiding misdirected shipments. We also have temperature and humidity sensors for ISO containers and other types of ISO tanks and other types of tank deliveries. We have tank level monitoring systems that can monitor the level of fluids. We've worked with dairies, and we've worked with different types of oil and petroleum organizations to be able to monitor tank levels and bring those back. And also in the early part of the year, we have a tractor link feature that's being added, a little puck that goes on the tractor, and then using Bluetooth, it'll transmit back exactly which tractor is pulling the trailer, and send back that unique ID. So we have that tractor to trailer link confirmation. So we know exactly who's pulling which piece of unpowered equipment, which trailer or which tractor. And the data flows into our cloud and to a server and then into your hands. There's a data portal that displays everything. And we also have APIs for customers to pull data directly if they just want direct access to data for their own or your own systems. Another little view of some of the different sensors that you can grow into above the baseline of GPS and location monitoring. So then data visibility. How do you get the data? How do you see the data? How do you integrate it into your operation? So there's a software as a service data portal that essentially provides, location, number of assets, where are those assets, asset tracks. You can see on the right showing it's attached to a particular container. We have that data that can be displayed. The system also has geofences. So we're able to actually highlight either in the data portal or uploaded to the device itself geographic areas that are either safe or unsafe. Maybe crossing a border, we want to increase the rate of transmission to be able to get more data when we're across a certain border, and then pull back when we're back across the border. We can program in depots, different transfer locations, yards. So basically anything that is a trigger point for an event, whether that's a billable event, delivery, a transition point in a journey, any of those types of locations, warehouses can be programmed either into the data portal or for an even faster response, especially in security types of situations, into the device itself. So that geofence capability allows you to trigger quite a lot of events. We've actually had some customers where they've triggered billing against arrival, and that's speeded up their velocity of money from about 60 days before they were turning around a bill and getting paid to about 10 minutes, where they were able to invoice almost immediately as soon as it arrived. They weren't waiting to find out, did it come, did it not come? And so those smart triggers can trigger payments, trigger timing of arrival. For certain commodities, that's very important. When did a commodity arrive at the customer site? We've seen cases where we've had commodity customers where their customers would game the system because no one really knew when the commodity had arrived. Sometimes it was third-party drivers, so they would game the time of arrival to have the most advantageous pricing on the market. They were billed based on price of arrival for certain commodities. Now they had that data over the air, and it was not controversial, and they could charge the amount that they were legitimately entitled to charge. So there's a wide variety of capabilities within this data portal and within the geofencing that can be customized in order to work for your business. So it becomes not just loss prevention, but also optimizing logistics, optimizing efficiency. And from a loss prevention point of view, there's a number of alerts that we can send out. So from this device, you can set up email. From the portal, you can set up email, text alerts, and so on that indicate, for example, if a truck is stopped too long in the wrong place. If it goes off, we can program in certain routes. If it goes off of that route, then it can send in a signal. If it doesn't transmit for some period of time, we can send out a message. So there's a variety of alerts that we can also provide, and often getting to that customer, to that issue within minutes rather than within a day or two can make all the difference between recovery and non-recovery. So quick view of some blue chip organizations. We work with pretty serious folks around the world. We started off actually in the military space, military logistics, and have expanded into into oil and gas and regular transportation logistics. So a lot of security protocols are in place for some of these types of customers that of course everyone gets the benefit of. And a quick case study before I stop for a little Q&A. So Maeda is a shipper in Mexico. They operate also in Texas, Southern California, Arizona. So they're cross-border. And they were seeing some real challenges around theft, around route planning, because they didn't really know exactly where their trailers were all the time at any given moment. Some level of visibility, especially outside metropolitan areas, where there was not really a sense of an understanding of exactly where are these trailers parked when they're on the side of the road, when they're outside of a metro. Customer information was difficult to give. They would have to say, well, we're going to find out and call you back, and make a bunch of phone calls to try to find a piece of equipment. And of course, prevention of theft, prevention of spoilage of cargo shipments, et cetera, because they just, if it's an unpowered asset, it just doesn't have any equipment to provide data. No power, no comms, just a box. So we were able to create these smart boxes. The CEO was very happy with what happened. They actually closed new deals and grew their business. So it was much more than just loss prevention. And they cited some very specific elements that the devices are purpose-built for commercial fleets. For example, the fact that it can fit into corrugations, the fact that it has geofences that are built in to be able to identify waypoints. Very well connected, so no loss of connection when they go from one cell system to another, let alone off of cell altogether. Data was very interoperable, kind of ready to go, 10-year battery life, simple, secure. So there was a real success story here, and this is one example of several that we have. We work worldwide. Again, as I said, we started in the military logistics space, and that's really what you want is, again, whether it's us or anybody else, looking at organizations that have come out of spaces where they have to be quite serious. There are a lot of organizations that set up mom and pop resellers to kind of resell low-cost GPS tracking equipment. And in the end, you get what you pay for. The security isn't there. Replacements have to go out. And the real cost is that cost of taking assets offline and reinstalling. The hardware almost pales in comparison to the labor costs and the cost to your supply chain efficiency of having to pull assets offline. So either that cost is incurred or else the system just stops being used when devices start failing. And that's really something that is important to look at, that we've focused on because we deal in places like Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, where conditions are difficult, northern Canada and the North Slope. And so we make sure it works there so that it works everywhere. Quick photo. This is an example of the cargo sensor that we're launching in the first part of the year. We have a forward mounted one and a rear mounted one. So one at the nose is an option, or one at the door. At the door, we have percentage full. At the nose, we just have full or empty, but it's a lower cost option. So this is one example of the products that we're coming out with to keep building on this smart container, smart trailer platform that we have here.